to start? Do you want me to just begin?
That's a good question. Where's Marilyn?
We lost Marilyn, didn't we?
I know that there's still a few people trickling in. I think she's out there.
I'll go back and ask. I'll be right back. Marilyn's coming. I think she's going to speak on behalf of me.
I didn't know it.
Oh, so
I think that you're.
I think I'm it. Okay.
Yeah.
So she, as soon as these sit, we're just going to sit.
Her.
Sorry, he was up here. Rio? Yeah, he's right here. Okay.
So first, second, then me.
Okay.
So I
Perfect.
think
We're just going to start.
Are we good?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to the Women's Club. My name is Kevin Winge. I'm the Executive Director of the Women's Club. Absolutely thrilled to be hosting, along with our partners, this City Council forum this evening. A couple of housekeeping duties. There are restrooms on this floor, so just go out the theater, take a left. And then also for safety reasons, in the unlikely event of any kind of an emergency, I want to point out the emergency exits. Easiest way out is through the doors you came in. There's plenty of exits to outside of the club. Those of you who are on stage can exit from the stage door as well. So what you might not know about the Women's Club, besides the fact that we've been around since 1907, is that the Women's Club is a nonprofit organization, and as such, we are committed to doing our part for the city in which we live, and civic engagement and events like this, bringing people together to make informed decisions about the future of our city, is incredibly important to our mission and clearly to all of us here tonight. So welcome. We are a nonprofit. That means we're a community asset. You are always welcome at the Women's Club. So, and to our candidates, thank you very much for being here. Have a good evening.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Loring Park neighborhood. My name is Ryo Hamasaki. I'm a board member of Citizens for Loring Park Community. You might have seen me taking photos at some of the local events, but I'm relatively a new member or new resident of this neighborhood. I've been here for about 11 months or so, but I haven't seen many of you, so it's very nice to meet you tonight. We are very excited to co-host this event with Downtown Minneapolis of Neighborhoods Association and also the Women's Club of Minneapolis. We'd like to also thank the League of Women's Voters for their participation and the facilitation of this event, especially Marilyn. I'm not sure where you are, but we couldn't have done this with you. She's been such a wonderful point person for this event. And then last but not least, we'd like to welcome again and thank everybody for being here tonight, whether you are joining us virtually or in person, to really appreciate the beauty of this magnificent historical building and to socialize with your neighbors and also, or of course, to learn from our candidates. So we hope you have a wonderful and educational night. So thank you very much.
All right, good evening, and welcome to the Minneapolis Ward 7 Loring Park Downtown City Council Candidate Forum. My name is Whitney Larson, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters, but I'm not a resident of Ward 7. I'm pleased to be moderating the forum this evening. The League of Women Voters of Minneapolis is a volunteer organization with a long history of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by voters, regardless of political beliefs. This forum is co-sponsored by Citizens for a Loring Park Community, Downtown Minneapolis Neighborhood Association, the Women's Club of Minneapolis, and the League of Women Voters Minneapolis. The views expressed here are those of the candidates and not those of the co-sponsors. Neither the League of Women Voters or its co-sponsors endorse candidates or political parties. We are holding this forum for voters to hear from the candidates and to compare their ideas. This forum is being held in front of a live audience, thank you for being here, at the Women's Club of Minneapolis, and is being live streamed to YouTube with the link available at lwvmpls.org. Thank you to the Women's Club for providing space and to MCN6 for the production and recording of this event. We ask that campaign buttons or campaign t-shirts not be worn in this room, or literature distributed and no signs being held during this event. Please remain as quiet as possible while the candidates are speaking so that everyone can hear the discussion. We also would ask that you hold your applause until the end of the forum so that candidates will have the maximum time to respond to your questions. Finally, please silence all electronic devices. Ward 7 is located on the western edge of Minneapolis. It contains historic residential neighborhoods, beautiful parks and lakes, and vibrant parts of downtown. It includes the neighborhoods of Bryn Mawr, Cedar Isles Dean, Downtown West, East Isles, Kenwood, Linden Hills, Loring Park, Lowry Hill, Stevens Square, Loring Heights, and West McCaska. 3 candidates are running for the Ward 7 City Council seat. All the candidates were invited to the forum, and all have agreed to participate this evening. Thank you so much for being here. As a reminder, Minneapolis local elections have ranked choice voting instead of primaries. You have the power to rank 3 candidates in the order of preference on the November ballot. For all races with more than 2 candidates, you should consider not just your first choice, but your second and third choices as well. Now let me introduce you to the candidates in alphabetical order. Katie Cashman, Ken Foxworth, and Scott Graham. We have timekeepers sitting in the front row so that each candidate has the same amount of time to respond to the questions. Following the opening statements, each candidate will have up to 1 1/2 minutes to answer each question, and then 1 minute to make a closing statement. The timekeeper will hold up a card when there are 15 seconds left and a stop card when the time is up. We ask at that point that the candidate finish their sentence and stop. We expect the forum to last about 1 1/4 to 1.5 hours. Questions from community members have been submitted in advance. During the forum, we will take written questions from the audience, and a volunteer will gather the questions and hand them to our question facilitators, and then to me, the moderator. We ask that the questions be clear and pertinent to the issues at hand and made in the form of a question, not a statement. Questions must be directed to all candidates. Questions that are hostile or of a personal nature will not be asked. We may consolidate questions of the same general topic. Finally, all questions submitted are property of the League of Women Voters, Minneapolis. We will be asking questions tonight about policing and public safety, housing, neighborhood support and welfare, climate and environmental equity and action plans, city government, and general questions. To get to as many topics as possible, we will limit the number of questions in each category. Since there is never enough time to cover all of the issues, if you feel that your question was not addressed, please contact the candidates directly after the forum. For the candidates' opening statements, we ask that they address this question: why are you running for the Ward 7 City Council seat, and what are your qualifications? You will each have up to 2 minutes to respond. It was determined by drawing numbers that the first candidate to speak is Scott Graham. The order will then rotate.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. My name is Scott Graham, and I use he, him pronouns. I want to thank the League for putting this event on, and the citizens for the Loring Park community and the Downtown Neighborhood Association for their support. And I'm pleased that you're all here. It's a nice full room. In 1991, I moved to Minneapolis with my girlfriend, Susie. We celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary this past week. She's here tonight, too. We live west of Cedar Lake in the Bryn Mawr neighborhood. My career for the last 25 years has been as a realtor, and I own my own brokerage called Uptown Realty. Owning a business has taught me a lot that I think is going to apply if I get elected to council. I've also been very involved in the DFL party. I've held a variety of leadership roles. Probably the most notable for you is that I was the chair of this Senate district in which we're sitting for about 10 years, which means I ran a committee which did all the caucuses and the conventions and all that. I've served on a variety of committees statewide in the DFL. I've been very active in the party. I've also worked on dozens of campaigns, and I've seen what good leadership looked like. I've also worked on committees with disagreement and factionalization, and learned how to collaborate productively in those circumstances, which I think is germane to what I'll face if I get elected to council. The values I'm going to share with you tonight are the values that I've developed authentically. They've not been arrived at as a convenience to win this election. There are differences between the candidates on this stage. Candidates' support for issues like rent control, which I do not support, and past or present beliefs about defunding our police, which I have never supported, matter. What's going on with violent crime in our city is not acceptable. We need a police force and a criminal justice system that can bring safety back to our streets. I believe Minneapolis has bright days ahead, and I want to help build that future. That's why I'm running for city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Katie Cashman.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. Before I start my remarks, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting, DMNA, CLPC, and the Women's Club for having us tonight. I personally am running because of the strong women leaders in Ward 7 who asked me to run and encouraged me to run for this seat. So again, my name is Katie Cashman. I'm running to represent you at City Council. I was born and raised in this city. I grew up swimming in Cedar Lake after school, serving breakfast at Uptown Diner on the weekends. I'm grateful to share this land with the original Anishinaabe and Dakota stewards. This city has nurtured me and has shaped who I am. I have 10 years of experience in public service. I'm a sustainability advocate, a policy professional, and a community builder. I worked at the United Nations for several years. We worked on helping municipalities develop sustainable development plans and capacity at the city level to directly impact people's lives. I also founded a nonprofit that fundraised for and built a community center. I also started a global program in business that raised millions of dollars of public funding to generate climate education and to bring climate change education into the classrooms, including our own Ward 7 elementary schools, Emerson Elementary, which I visited this morning. I'm running for this seat because I believe in the power of community to take on big challenges in our city. Unreliable public safety system, housing unaffordability, small businesses in dire need of support. These are big issues that require fresh, creative ideas and solutions to take them on. I'm here tonight to share my vision with you, to answer your questions, and to earn your support. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Ken Foxworth?
Yes, good evening. And I once again ditto when it comes down to the Women's League of Voters and the Women's Club. I just got a joke, if you don't mind. My thing is that I was the executive director of diversity and outreach for, University of Minnesota. And the other thing is that for the DFL, I was the deputy chair for the whole Black Caucus for the Democratic National Committee, which I served the DNC for 14 years. There was a black gala that I went to, and then next thing you know, this dude came out of nowhere and touched me on my back and asked me for an autograph. And I'm like, what, for what? He said, well, I see you on TV. And I'm like, no, well, maybe I played for the University of Minnesota football. Sure, we played Michigan and all that stuff. #1, we won. And the other thing is I ran with Bill Clinton 3 times. I did the executive being on the executive board for the DFL. I did that. Sure, I've been involved in tons of community activities here. I ran 154 miles to raise scholarship from Duluth all the way from here. I'm thinking that maybe he knows that. So I turned around and I asked him, well, who you think I am? He said, well, ain't you Uncle Phil who played Prince? I said, no, that made no sense. And so my thing is that why I'm here is because you are here. You didn't come to watch TV because the Vikings is playing football today. You came here because the commitment and the love that you have for your community. I'm here for that. I'm here for one issue and one issue that I've been saying for years, for these couple of years. And now is now. It's safety, safety, and safety. There's 2 things that we have problems here. One is we got fear and we have hate. One thing that we can change is fear and hate. I'm here for you because there's 3 things that I know that is important that I can do for you. 1, I listen. 2, I care. And the other thing that is the most important thing is I matter. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now move on to questions from the live audience and those submitted in advance. Candidates will have up to 1 1/2 minutes to answer each question. I'm going to kick us off, actually, with a question from the live audience. This is a general question. How do you propose to acknowledge in your policies the changing demographics of downtown Minneapolis so everyone thrives? Ken, you will answer first this time.
The thing that's going on with downtown Minneapolis is right now is fear. And from that, we are not really divided, we're just not connected. We have an issue in dealing with bringing people together. Because bringing people together means a chance and a choice. We are afraid to stand up for something that we know we have the right to be. Being a part of Minnesota, being part of this great city called Minneapolis, we have to be in a position of changing the policies. Now, how to change the policy is to be in a position of standing up. Are you tired of being sick and tired? And when you get to that point, then you'll be in a position of bringing us together. One thing that I know that is really sincere, we are here and we're not going nowhere. We are here because we realize that one thing and one thing is important, to change the way our city looks. And the way that we change those cities and the way we look at it is changing the policies that is necessary to make sure that this city is one of the best cities in the United States.
Thank you. Katie.
So a lot of people don't think about downtown as a neighborhood, but actually it's the home to 50,000 people. And just 5,000 people have moved in to downtown since 2020. So there's a growing residential population in downtown. And my priorities with downtown revitalization are to center residents and their livability in that conversation. I have been door knocking apartments throughout downtown West and Loring Park for the last 8 months, and I have heard so many folks say that they feel neglected and left out of that conversation around revitalization. There are many diverse residents downtown, including elders who want to live car-free in an apartment, families with young children who ride their bike or take the light rail to take their kids to school. I believe that in our downtown revitalization efforts, we need human-centered, people-centered programs and initiatives. So programming, festivals, safety on the street includes street lighting, it includes bathrooms and water fountains and human spaces. So I look forward to working with the Downtown Council and the Downtown Improvement District to advance a downtown that is serving the residents, the voters in downtown West. That's my role on City Council.
Thank you. Scott?
So downtown is one of the fastest growing neighborhoods in Minneapolis. And the question alludes to the diversity of that growth. We have a broken record of public safety in all of our neighborhoods, but downtown is chief among them. So I think public safety underpins a lot of the things we need to do in downtown to make it a livable and vital part of our city. One thing I think we can do, and I may speak about this more at a different question, is infuse arts and culture into everything we do. Downtown is home to the theater district, and recently the mayor designated Harmon Place as an arts incubator district, and I'm 100% behind that kind of an idea. I think that's a great way to bring people downtown. It's a great way to showcase the diverse community of artists we have in our city, and it's a great way to bring people in from the burbs so they go back to wherever they came from and tell their neighbors they had a great time in Minneapolis and it was safe. I think I will, as a counselor, I'll always pay attention to the neighborhood associations. I think they're really important parts of our city. And although they're part of our government, I think they're really more part of community. So the Citizens for Loring Park and Downtown Neighborhood Council will be on my speed dial to find out what's going on in their part of town. And also, I think we need to make getting around downtown easy without a car, but I think we always need to preserve the necessary infrastructure for businesses and residents that want to use a car. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is about housing, and this was submitted by both the Neighborhood Association and several community questions that were similar to this. As a City Council member, what specific strategies do you support or propose for our unsheltered population? How would you suggest we address encampments? Scott, you are first.
So it's inhumane to allow people to live in encampments when they're surrounded by heavy drug use and human trafficking. The way we best address that is by providing deeply affordable housing, by relying on our partner organizations like Avivo, Aon, Common Bond, Simpson Housing, who provide this housing that people who have very, very little or no income can be sheltered in, be supported in. And at these facilities, we provide wraparound services like trauma-informed mental health therapy, substance abuse, and harm reduction, so that we're not just propping people up on their feet and pushing them out the door. We're really getting them on their feet holistically so they can begin to lead their better life. I think when we make the decision to disassemble an encampment, it needs to be done with notice so people can lead a predictable life. And we need to have culturally specific support services offered when that disassembly is occurring, like secure storage for people's things. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thank you. Ken.
Oh, thank you. I think the issue is it's just about affordable housing. It's more than that. You got people as for veterans. You got single women in a household with family. You got mental health issues. You got even, I say, older citizens who got their kids, their daughters or their sons' kids, went inside of this area. We have to figure out a way how we can get this together. One thing is that you can't bunch all of them up and thinking that they're going to live, like jolly, like being in a position where they feel good about each other, because that's not going to happen. You have to figure out exactly what we have to do by looking at different, families individually, to get them to understand exactly what we are here for, to serve them and get them to a point where they can move to another level. And that is outside of being out of a tent. The other thing, too, is to get them to understand that we truly do care and we listen. But the most important thing is that once we do all of those things, and you got folks who just don't want to do what is necessary to move on, then we need to find another way for them to be in a position of getting their help, or they need to leave the city.
Katie.
I'll just come out and say that Minneapolis is failing on this issue 100%. We spend $123,000 on every encampment eviction. We spend millions of dollars a year pushing people around the city when they had been stationed at a place where they were able to receive outreach services, where they were able to start talking to social service providers about what their needs were, and then pushed around the city. We see the impacts throughout Minneapolis. Just last month, there were 2 encampment evictions, and the outreach workers at Minneapolis were not available by phone, and the city was not providing any shelter. The shelters were full. So this is an issue that Minneapolis cannot solve alone. This is actually something we need to work very closely with Hennepin County on. I'm very proud to be endorsed by Hennepin County Commissioner Board Chair Irene Fernando. This is something that we talked about in our first meeting. How can we get a coalition together with city council members, city staff, the mayor, and Hennepin County workers to put forward a comprehensive strategy on encampments and addressing homelessness? The thing we have to understand about homelessness is there's a root issue here, and it's the opioid crisis. There is such a need for treatment for opioid addiction, and that is causing a lot of people to be suffering and to be living in the streets. So we need to be providing shelter spaces, but we also need these wraparound services. We need mental health and addiction services to be included in that so that people aren't living outside, and this is my #1 priority if I'm elected in the winter when it will be cold.
Thank you. Our next question is also about housing. As demand for office space has declined, Minneapolis is considering using tools to help with converting commercial to residential housing. What, as a city council member, considerations do you think are important in this process? Ken, you are first.
Change the zoning codes. I mean, that's one thing. The other thing is changing policies. One thing I don't like to do is to change the zoning code when it comes down to Whittier or Phillips, because from that, those are single housing. That is the mecca step like that. But we need to be in a position, if you're going to do these mini houses, if you're going to do some of these places, you have to be in a position of making sure that the zoning code and making sure that the policy makes right sense to get these folks in shelters or get them a way of better living, or getting them not just temporary housing, but get them housing.
Thank you. Scott.
So the question's about downtown and housing. So we're going to continue to see vacancy in office facilities downtown as businesses shift around and decide what space they want to stick with and convert to. We're going to see some buildings downtown that are office spaces now converted to residential use, but I'll be honest, that's not an easy path. The windows usually don't open, there's no outdoor space, a lot of the plumbing stacks aren't in the right places for residential, and a lot of times they don't have parking. So they don't make great residential conversions. Some of it will happen, but that's not the answer for all of it. So we're going to have to try different sorts of things. Whenever we do a housing development, City Council tries to get the developer to incorporate affordability into the project so a certain percentage of the units meet our affordable housing goals through our inclusive zoning program and our targets that we try and partner with HUD and the federal government to bring money into projects so developers are interested in including this affordability. But that's not every building. So we're short of a big hotel by the convention center. I could see an office building being converted into a hotel. Those conversions are a little easier because hotels can work with windows that don't open, that they don't usually have outdoor spaces and that sort of thing. It's a short amount of time to tell you how we're going to revitalize all of downtown, and I'm just getting waved off.
Thank you. Katie.
The office to housing conversion is a really exciting new way for us to revitalize downtown, being that there's such a high vacancy rate of offices and we have a shortage of affordable housing. So the unique thing about office spaces is that the bathrooms are centralized, right? You don't have plumbing going to every single part of the floor plan in an office building. So a really exciting opportunity is to actually create single room occupancy housing out of office buildings, because that is a shared bathroom. It's a deeply affordable style of housing. We are seeing office building conversions to housing both in St. Paul and in Minneapolis, and that's feasible. The Ecolab building in St. Paul was converted from office to housing. The North Star building in downtown Minneapolis is being converted from office to housing. So the government can help incentivize this. Another consideration I'd like to point out is the necessary inclusion of a union workforce in that work. There's a lot of jobs in construction, in plumbing, in electricity, and a lot of opportunities to create affordable housing, also with clean energy investments, with solar, with electric heating and cooling, with electric vehicle charging infrastructure when we revitalize and renovate our buildings.
Thank you. I'm going to continue on with neighborhood questions. Downtown Minneapolis has been the economic engine of Minnesota and our city. In 2021, downtown Minneapolis provided 47% of the tax base to fund city services. With the decline in downtown office workers and businesses post-COVID, what do you, as a city council member, propose that the city do to revitalize downtown? And how would you finance this? Katie.
Well, I had the great fortune of meeting some folks from Meet Minneapolis tonight. I think that our opportunities in tourism are really strong in Minneapolis. The Tourism Improvement District was passed at the state legislature last year, so there's an opportunity to generate funding for improvements downtown through that endeavor. But like I said earlier, I want to focus on downtown as a place for residents and improving the livability for residents. We have great partners with Meet Minneapolis, with the Downtown Council, and with the Downtown Improvement District in order to create people-centered public spaces that ensure that residents downtown have walkable and safe communities with amenities. I'd also like to help ensure that small businesses can thrive downtown. The affordability of commercial leases, including the high tax rate for downtown businesses, is quite stifling for the small business economy, but that doesn't mean we don't have solutions there. We can look at what St. Paul is doing, for example, with subsidizing the first month's rent for a small business that's coming in. The Chameleon Shops program that the Downtown Council is leading is providing affordable lease structures for businesses run by women of color downtown Minneapolis. So I think there's a lot we can do. I also want to close by saying that I would love to serve on the Meet Minneapolis board and to encourage creative industries and our creative institutions throughout Ward 7 to participate in revitalization.
Thank you. Ken.
Can you hear me better? Am I talking loud enough? Okay, I guess I was talking like Barry White, I guess. My issue is this. I mean, you can do all of the stuff that you're just saying right now, but the most important thing that you have that needs to be addressed is safety. You can make these plans. We can do all the things that is necessary. But the thing is that, hey, when you go on a light rail, number blue or green, and next thing you know, you see this pill they call blue that's tearing people to be zombie and everything else, we got to get that off the streets. The other thing, too, is making sure that when we get this money and what we want to do with this money is to deal with safety. One thing that I suggest, I believe this, is that, hey, you got a tax in dealing with liquor tax that you just paid off one of the stadiums that's downtown Minneapolis. Why not use some of that money for doing what? Safety. With that safety money, you already know that people are going to be coming into Minneapolis. You already know that that money will be going to what? Safety. They're doing it in Maple Groves, so why not do it here?
Thank you. Scott.
So this is kind of two questions in one. As far as revitalizing downtown, I think that we have something going really right now, which is the Downtown Improvement District's Ambassador Program. And I would like to expand that or replicate that into Loring Park. I think this neighborhood deserves the amazing service that they provide. I would also, I'm not going to talk much about this during this answer because I spoke about it already, but I want to lean into the arts to revitalize our downtown community. But when I think about the question, it talks about the tax revenue of downtown. And I got to tell you, we're going to have a problem there because these downtown businesses, these giant buildings are being sold and or foreclosed on at values that are unheard of. And if I just paid, or if Katie here just paid $50 million for a building that was valued at $200 million, she's not going to want to pay taxes on 200. She's going to want to pay taxes on 50, reasonably. So here's what I have to say about this. I sat on a board of an organization called Riverton Community Housing, and that was a affordable housing nonprofit provider. And on that board, we managed multi-million-dollar budgets. And in that work, I learned what a big budget looks like and how to build buildings with tax increment financing and with city-backed bond issues. And I think council in the future is going to have to wrestle with shrinking budgets. We're going to have to learn to say no. It's going to be hard. I've done that work, and I want to continue to do that work as your rep on city council.
Thank you. We'll stay on the same track with a neighborhood question. The Minneapolis 2030 plan proposed changes in traffic patterns. Would you make any changes, and what is your view on Hennepin Avenue? Katie.
So the Hennepin Avenue reconstruction project is underway, and it's going to be a very difficult time for folks who live along Hennepin Avenue. I'm very much committed to making sure the corridor stays open throughout reconstruction. That's my #1 priority. And I've been talking to businesses along Hennepin Avenue about what their needs are around street parking, around street lighting, around sidewalk maintenance. I think that the city can do a lot more to provide technical and financial assistance to businesses along Hennepin Avenue throughout the reconstruction project. But what's most important for me as city council member is being a listening ear for you and providing clear communication about what the closures are, what the process is for the city and the Public Works Department as they complete this project. I also want to mention that there are some great improvements we could make to that plan, including protecting the greenery along Hennepin Avenue. That's important to so many residents. I hear about that when I'm door knocking every single weekend. And another improvement I'd like to make to the plan is to install electric vehicle charging infrastructure while we are doing this reconstruction. We have this huge opportunity right now with financial incentives and grant opportunities from the federal government to invest in electric vehicle infrastructure, and the city is not grabbing that opportunity. That's something that I want to lead on alongside residents who are interested in doing that in their communities and along public spaces as well.
Thank you. Scott.
So I'm really concerned about what's going to happen on Hennepin Avenue, and a lot of the people I talk to on the doors share that concern. The inclusion of a bike lane on Hennepin Avenue and the exclusion of parking because of the bike lane is a real problem. Businesses along Hennepin Avenue are simply going to go away. And I think that's really sad. It's really too bad. There are some wonderful small businesses along Hennepin Avenue. Small businesses are the heart and soul of our economy. Yes, Hennepin Avenue needs to be redeveloped. It has, the road surface is terrible. The lanes swerve from block to block. It's a harrowing street to drive down, and that is with the potholes patched. When the potholes were in full effect, you had to use both lanes. Fortunately, we all came to an agreement that that was going to be acceptable, that I'm going to swerve into your lane and you're going to swerve into mine, but that's no way to live. I am really concerned about Hennepin Avenue, and I don't want to do small change to that plan. I would really, really like the new city council to vote to reopen that and relitigate that plan. I think that that plan was done with the city going to the neighborhood and asking for their input, thanking them for their input, putting it in a notebook, putting it on a shelf, and doing what they were going to do in the first place. I'm really concerned about this, and I think my concern is shared by a lot of people who live around there who really care about that street and their neighborhood.
Thank you. Ken?
Yeah, I agree in a way, but the other thing that I agree is that we have to create a change. The problem that I have is that when you look at the essence of, I say, entertainment, you got all of the theaters that's on Hennepin. The problem that you have is that once you go past Orthrium, you got the area where you have a liquor store, and then on the next block, you got all these folks, man, just sitting there, not doing nothing and getting on. I mean, those things, when it comes down to safety, is the most important thing that we have to do to make sure that it is safe. I can say, yes, we can create electric cars, and all of that stuff, or we can do and making sure that we have plants and stuff. But if you got somebody taking that plant and throwing it away, and then next thing you know, you got the battery to put into the car and all of that stuff, what's going to happen? It's going to be gone. My thing is that until we get ourselves safe and get it to a point where we understand that this is the number one thing that we have to do, then that's what we have to do. We have to have a city council strong enough, bold enough, and have the energy enough to say, no, this is our priority, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to make our place not feel safe. It's going to be safe.
Thank you. I'm going to move to some questions on climate. Minneapolis's current funding for equitable climate action in the city is about $2 to $3 million annually, coming from what's called the franchise fee. Excel and CenterPoint utility customers in Minneapolis pay this as a percentage of our total utility bills. What scale of dedicated funding do you, as a city council member, believe is needed to meet Minneapolis's climate goals in an equitable way? And where would you propose this funding come from? Scott.
So Minneapolis just passed the Climate Equity Plan, which is a fantastic set of forward-looking goals on climate. And it's also a racial equity plan. It's all built into one. It's a really, really good piece of legislation. Minneapolis also passed the Mayor's Climate Legacy Initiative to pay for it. Now, the question of how much. We don't know. We really don't know how much this is going to cost because these goals are lofty. We're going to try and become a zero-waste city so we can close the garbage incinerator. We're going to try and electrify our homes with rooftop solar and heat pumps. We're going to push weatherization and insulation into all of our homes, which is the least expensive way to cut demand for power. And we're going to try and become a carbon-free city by 2050. And we could do this all if we put our back into it. Now, the budget, that's our back. That's what we have. At least $10 million a year. I could see this plan costing us $100 million over the course of the next 10 years without difficulty. But I'll tell you this, it also includes 1,000 green jobs. I would like to see those jobs filled by a majority Minneapolis workforce and a union workforce. So I think $10 million annually is a good place to start. And we need to capitalize on federal and state grants to maximize our funding support of the climate initiative.
Thank you. Katie.
I'll get to the numbers in a second, but I just want to start this question by talking about climate change a little bit more generally as the crisis of my generation, the thing that keeps people my age and younger up all night and worrying about our future. We have a very critical window from 2020 to 2030 to reduce our emissions by half. And the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change, actually just said that we don't have until 2050 to get to net zero. We actually have to get there by 2045. That's within, my lifetime, and that's very important to me that we reach these goals so we don't have a total breakdown of our society and of our city in the next 20, 30 years. I worked really hard on the People's Climate and Equity Plan. I organized Ward 7 neighbors, some of which are here, to contact our council member, to contact the mayor, and to build the People's Climate and Equity Plan, which passed unanimously at the City Council this July with $10 million in dedicated annual funding. We need to get that number up to $100 million each year in dedicated annual funding, which is completely feasible. We actually just last week as a city got $8 million from the U.S. Department of Agriculture to address the emerald ash borer tree problem in Minneapolis and to fund that work. There are so many federal incentives out there right now under Biden's presidency, and I will lead on the City Council on making sure our Sustainability Department is requesting that funding and generating it.
Thank you. Ken?
Yes, when it comes down to the environment, you got to understand that it's not just a city thing. It's a federal, local, and state. You have to be in a position of making sure that you got money on all three ends The other thing too is that you got to be in a position of making sure that we understand your needs too. How to do that is to be in a position of making sure that hey, we have submit community activities as for town hall meetings, making sure that we have subcommittees so we can know exactly what the cost and what we can do in this short amount of time. I mean, just remember, we the city council already approved the 2040, and then a judge canceled because of what? The climate, and all of that stuff was changed. So they had to go right back to what? The 2030 plan. So my thing is that until we be in a position of making sure that we have the right platform and a long-term strategy, that's the only way that we can look at that. Because this is going to be going on to our lifetime. It's going to be a climate change. We have to figure out right now at this time, do we have the money and how are we going to get the money, and using all three of those components to make sure that we have the money flowing before we do something again and then next, it'll be canceled back out.
Thank you. This next question is from the live audience. What is your position on HERC? Should it be shut down? What might be a better alternative? Ken, you are first.
It should be shut down. I mean, the thing is that you got to understand, that's over right there by the Target Center. Shoot, I was there when I was an intern at the city of Minneapolis. I was a city planner. I got my degree in urban studies. And from that, I saw when Van White approved that because he wanted to have it outside of the city. But most of the council members wanted to have it inside. Now you got asthma, you got all of the other problems that you are facing. Which side of that? And for me, you have no other choice. Now, since you got gentrification over there, look at the outcome that you have done with people of color who's been living there for years. The asthma is up and everything else. That's when you have to say to me, enough is enough.
Thank you. Katie.
Hennepin Energy Recovery Center, the trash incinerator that we have downtown should absolutely be closed. It should have never been built there in the first place. Frankly, we shouldn't be building and burning trash in the middle of our city. But yes, a lot of people's health is impacted by the emissions that come out of that facility, including lead and PFAS and all kinds of other toxins. And you don't have to look much further than the COVID-19 pandemic and the rates of respiratory illness that so many people, especially on the north side, have faced because of that air pollution. We can close the Hennepin Energy Recovery Center, but we need to have a really good plan for dealing with our trash before the Hennepin County will move on that. And that's something that the city needs to take accountability for, is what are we doing with all of our waste? We don't have strong markets for recycling. We have a good composting system. That is something that we should lean into and we should expand. We should make sure that every business and every multifamily housing throughout Minneapolis is able to compost. That's how we divert enough waste from the trash incinerator in order to make it viable to shut it down. That's what I want to lead on City Council, is to expand our composting infrastructure and make sure that we have end uses for that really good soil. We could even use it locally in our own gardens. We could create community composting facilities in our parks to make sure we can keep that soil within our communities.
Thank you. Scott.
So I'd like to sit here and tell you that we can close the HERC, but I'm not going to lie to you. We can't do that until we stop producing trash. All of it. That's a decision Minneapolis made some years ago, was to not landfill any of our garbage. And it's a good decision. A lot of very forward-thinking cities use incineration to burn their trash, like Helsinki and Copenhagen. So it's not a bad technology. Can it be improved? Yes. We need the best scrubbers to cut emissions out of the stacks. But we're not going to close that facility until we stop producing trash. And we can do that. It's not going to be easy. Right now, my wife and I are trying to get rid our house of plastic waste, like bread bags and the stringy plastic waste. It is very, very difficult to do. Very difficult. And we can afford to do things that not everybody can afford to do to achieve that goal. So I'm telling you, it's very difficult. It's what we're going to try and build is called a zero waste circular economy, where everything that we use gets reused or recycled or composted. And like the candidate to my right, I agree that composting needs to be increased, specifically in commercial and multifamily within our city. Every residential, single family and duplex can have a composting bin. That's not so in commercial, restaurants, and multifamily.
Thank you. This is another climate question from the live audience. What would you do as a city council member to make downtown and our near downtown neighborhoods more pervious and green? Scott.
Oh, it's a good question. More pervious and green. Well, I think the redesign of the Nicollet Mall failed on the green part. I wish they would have planted a lot more trees there. I think back on when I first moved to Minneapolis and all the streets you'd drive down that had tree canopy that touched in the center and how magical that is. And I don't expect that we can do that downtown, but I think trees are really important. And you know, most of those trees are not watered with an automated system. Those trees get watered by rain going through a hole about this big, or by a truck that comes by and blasts water from a cannon on them occasionally. So I think those, green horticulture that we plant downtown needs to have watering infrastructure built into it. We paid an awful lot of money for the Nicollet Mall remodel. I think we can expect more. Perviousness refers to the ability of water to percolate through the surface. And a downtown that's mainly concrete and asphalt is very impervious. It has drains on the street corners that carry the water away to the river. So that's just going to take a continued approach to every project that gets brought to planning and zoning needs to have a impervious percentage built into it. And it's a point system. And if you include more impervious surface, you gain more points and your projects get green lighted.
Thank you. Ken.
Well, I think is that what you need is more trees, and the other thing is that you need more volunteers. I mean, one is that you already have an adoption of the highway. What you might need to do is have an adoption when it comes down to the light rail areas, the stations, and the other thing too is have those in the bus areas too. Once people take pride of their area, start to plant, put greens, and the other thing to have the city give them some kind of, some kind of money for, doing these things. I think that you bring in a lot of groups to participate in making our city great again. I'm not trying to act like, no, but I'm trying to be in a position of making sure that everything that we do is all in together, because that's the way we should do. I mean, we are always dependent on others. Why we don't have to depend on ourselves?
Thank you. Katie.
I think downtown greenery creates a lot of benefits for downtown residents, not only better air quality and better mental health, but also prevents noise pollution too, which is something that a lot of downtown residents talk to me about. Stormwater drainage that comes through the green surfaces in our areas is not great, and we actually see the impacts of that in the Mississippi River, and in Uptown we see that in the lakes area with a lot of pollution coming off the streets. I think this is something that we can really collaborate with the park board on, as well as the Downtown Improvement District. I've met the Downtown Improvement District Green Corps folks who have run the Adopt a Tree program downtown, and it's great that people come out and water trees, but we also need a public workforce to be able to do that, to keep trees maintained and healthy downtown. It's also important that we choose tree species very wisely when we do planting. If we're choosing a tree species that's going to be impacted by a pest or a beetle, those trees will need to be taken down, which we're seeing with the emerald ash borer situation. Finally, I'd like to mention that, again, I'm just out here praising Biden tonight. I wasn't expecting this, but he passed the Civilian Climate Corps project just last week, which is an opportunity to employ millions of young people throughout the country. And the Civilian Climate Corps is a version of the Green New Deal, and employing people to take care of public spaces and clean energy projects throughout the country. So I think we could implement that here.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to some questions around policing and public safety. What is your definition of safety, And what do you see as the role of the Minneapolis police? Ken.
Oh, you gonna hit me. I should. I mean, one is that I believe this is my number one issue because I live there. I have a good friend, his name is Max, who's on WCCO, and he made a statement. He said, like, Minneapolis is a, I hate to say it, he said it, shithole. And it was like, man, it hurt me because it was, in a way, I live downtown, I live on Sioux Line apartment. My car been vandalized, not just one time, but two. I have seen people urinate and do some crazy stuff on the light rail. I've seen the drugs, and I've seen people walking like zombies because of the blue pill. And I think that the problem that we have to say is that, hey, it's the safety, not just dealing with police bringing in 25%. It's the preventive programs and dealing with our youth. You got vandalism. You got people stealing cars that's 15 years old. And the sad thing is they only got 30 days. And what you need to be in a position to expand in that 30-day program to a year or two. You have to be in a position of changing the way they think. Because one thing that they know is that they feel like they can do things. And at that time, they feel like they're Superman, and they're not. They got to be in a position they understand that they are part of this community, they are part of this city, and they are valued. But the other thing is that there's sometimes you got to do tough love as well. So from that, dealing with the area of dealing with our youth and dealing with it in a position where we are saying enough is enough.
Thank you. Scott.
The question is, what is safety? Safety is real and safety is perceived. Safety is different for everybody. People have to feel comfortable in their neighborhood and in downtown and in our town. We want people within our city and the suburbs and from other parts of the country or world to come here and feel safe. The perception is as important as anything, and it starts with our good example. What's the police's role in safety? Well, it's obviously central, but it's not just the police. It's our behavioral crisis response team, and it's the violence de-escalation professionals we use to supplement the police. These things all serve a different role in the public safety realm, and they're all really important. Sending an armed response to somebody who's having a mental health crisis might be the exact wrong thing to do. It might be better to send either a behavioral crisis professional or that plus an officer to hang back and make sure things are in hand. We have a lot of important and useful assets like the Downtown Council and the Downtown Improvement District. These people are working night and day to enhance the perception and the reality of safety in our city. And as a council person, I really want to support all those efforts.
Thank you. Katie.
My definition of public safety is a fast and reliable emergency response to 911 when you need it. I personally, in the past week, have had to call 911 twice, not for my own safety, for others, and both times received a response, "We just can't come." And I think that's quite unacceptable. So as a renter living in the Loring Heights neighborhood, I really experience public safety and community safety as the #1 issue impacting the livability of our neighborhoods, especially as a young woman. So I take this very seriously, and I think a lot about what's the council's role in making sure that we have a reliable 911 response, whether that's good police, whether that is the fire department, whether that's the behavioral crisis response team, or other alternative and complementary responders. For sure, the city is spending $200 million on its public safety budget every year, and we deserve to see results from that investment as taxpayers. One important way that the City Council can hold the police accountable to that large budget is asking them to do a staffing study. We did a 911 responders study in the last couple years to identify what's the nature of the 911 calls that were coming in. I think it's time that we had a police staffing study to see how they're allocating their staffing and their resources to actually meet the 911 responders' needs. And with that evidence, we'd be able to move forward with a more effective use of our public safety money.
Thank you. This is another question around policing and public safety that was submitted by the neighborhood in advance. What are your suggestions for increasing the number of people interested in policing? What steps are you going to take and support to staff the Minneapolis Police Department fully? And what is your time frame to fully staffing the department? Katie.
Yeah, I think that I will support the public safety departments in their efforts to meet the minimum staffing number as laid out in the Minneapolis City Charter. And right now they're having a hard time filling the labor shortage. And part of that is because of a labor shortage across industries that many of us are experiencing. But part of that is also because of the reputation of our police department right now. And so I think that the consent decree and the implementation of reforms in the police department will also help us hire for the police department. There are some great reforms that the consent decree and the Minnesota Department of Human Rights will guide us through, including wellness for police officers, that they have services to deal with the trauma and the very difficult job that they have. That's something that will make the job more attractive, hopefully, to women, to healthcare professionals from our community, to people from diverse backgrounds who are rooted in our community. I'd like to see our police department staffed locally rather than sourced from across the country and from across the state. One key way that I think I can help with that is expanding hiring pathways from nurses' assistance programs or other healthcare professional programs in the colleges throughout Ward 7, like Minneapolis College, formerly known as MCTC. I think that we can work together to help fill the need with healthcare professionals who are trained to take on a lot of what the 911 calls relate to, which is health, mental health, and addiction services.
Thank you. Ken.
I think the most important thing that you can do right now is to grow your own. The key is that once you start to grow your own, because what you got a community already know exactly what the issues are. They already have a program at Patrick Henry High School. Let's expand that to North. Let's expand that to Southwest. Let's expand that to Roosevelt High School. Then once that is over with, and have that long-term vision of doing that, why not go to the University of Minnesota or St. Thomas or other places where they have student athletes that they understand the role of being a team. And then from that, since you already have those young women and men already understand exactly how to work together as a team, then you'll be in a position of having folks to understand exactly what they need to do, and that is to serve our community. When you start to understand that there is people out here who want to serve, just like people out here of people of color who do not want to be in a position of being in a position of defunding the police. They want police in their presence. They want to be in a position where they have the quality people that you can. So why not grow your own? Why not be in a position of recruiting just like what you're recruiting to play ball, to play sports? Get them to a point where they know exactly that you care about them, and I guarantee you that they will do exactly what you want them to do.
Thank you. Scott.
So the Minneapolis Police Department is facing a situation that's common in our nation. They can't hire people. People don't want to work for our police department. So we're currently under a consent decree, or about to enter a consent decree, I should say, with the Department of Justice. And I'm really hopeful that this is going to produce results. We need results. We need to transform the culture in our police department. Transform the culture so we have a police department that respects the community and that the community respects. That's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take transformational change. I've met with the police chief. I've spoken with Chief O'Hara multiple times. I think he's got the right idea. I am a supporter. I think he's taking big swings at things that look impossible, and that's probably exactly what needs to happen based on where we stand today. I think we need to be hiring more BIPOC police, more women officers. We need diversity in our force so the force looks and feels like our city. We are now one of the top 10 paid police forces in the state, and we probably need to be in the top 3 to adequately recruit. We have a large department, which means we have opportunities for advancement for officers. So hopefully the combination of the new chief and the consent decree will make us an attractive force, and we'll start seeing our recruit classes get bigger.
Thank you. I'm going to close out with 2 general questions, and then we'll move on to closing statements. This next one, how would you build working relationships with others in City Council, particularly with those whom you might not agree? Katie, you're first.
I actually talk about this a lot because people are really frustrated with the divided City Council right now, feeling like people aren't sure how to navigate this change to a strong mayor system and what's the role of the City Council and how do they relate to each other, how do they get things done. I really want to be a bridge builder on the council, which means working with all 13 City Council members. I know all of the current City Council members and have talked with them about our shared priorities. For example, small business supports, downtown revitalization, public safety reform, making sure we have safe sidewalks during the winter months. There are a lot of priorities that we could come to together on City Council. I think that it begins with talking and expressing your views, calling each other often, speaking with the mayor often, and working collaboratively. I do not side with this feeling that we have with the City Council being 2 sides. I actually think that there are multiple sides on the City Council, and I think it's okay to disagree as long as we have a respectful discourse around our disagreements and respect that we're all representing our constituency. And I will make it very clear to the other City Council members that I'm here to represent Ward 7. I'm here to represent my people, and that's what I'm going to bring to the table when it comes to policy-making decisions.
Thank you. Scott.
So this is the work I've been doing for the past 25 or so years in the DFL and in business. I've learned to become a collaborative leader. I really want to elevate the conversation in City Council. And how I see this happening is by working with all 12 members and dropping the barriers, forgetting about the factionalization, and let's just talk to each other. Let's ascribe best intentions. I'm going to assume everything you're bringing is an idea that you're behind and you think is right for the city. I want to treat the other people on council and the mayor and the staff with respect and with an open mind. That's the way you collaborate. You don't have to win every battle. It's okay to work with somebody on a project that might not even align with what I think is my core value of what I think Ward 7 needs. Maybe we're going to work in Ward 10 with Aisha Chugtai because 7 and 10 share Uptown. So a win for Uptown is a win for Minneapolis. So I think that the relationships I have with a lot of the council people now, some of which extend back, well, gosh, I've known Aisha Chugtai for 15 years, I bet. And some of them probably longer than that. I think those relationships will bear fruit. I want to trust them, and I hope they trust me. And I really mean what I say about elevating the conversation.
Thank you. Ken.
Some parts I want to say I like to be like Lisa Goodman. I mean, hardcore to the T. I mean, just break it down and she just tell you exactly how it is and that's just the way it is. I'm part of that too. But the other part too is I like to be in a position of throwing that rod out and you say, look, let's work together. But one thing that I understand, and I understand perfectly clear, that's why I'm here. You matter. I listen to you. I care. My ideals and my concentration is on Ward 7. And if I can negotiate, I'll do the best that I can. But when it comes down to Ward 7, this is what you got me to be, the city council member for this area. That's my responsibility, and that's something I'm going to do.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close us out with one last question from the audience. What is your strategy for centering and amplifying the voices and perspectives of those most impacted by the issues whom you will represent, particularly constituents who have been historically marginalized? Scott.
So, as a older white guy, this has to have crossed my mind. I think that it's really important that any of us that get elected remember to bring voices in to the rooms from the community and make sure that they're at the table when decisions are made. Leadership comes in all packages. This is the one I was assigned. But the leadership I want to display is to amplify those voices by bringing them into the room. I can be a good representative for BIPOC communities or people from the LGBTQ community, but nothing beats having them at the table. So being connected with those communities, which I am, and making sure that we're always in communication as issues revolve around decisions made at City Council, bringing these organizations and individuals in to testify, to talk to me, to go get a cup of coffee, whatever it amounts to make sure that I have their voice in my head, and better yet, invite them into the room. This is how this job has to be done if we're going to be the city that we all think we should and can be.
Thank you. Katie.
I think we need to be clear that Minneapolis is a deeply inequitable city. Even Ward 7 is a deeply inequitable ward. We have parts of Ward 7 that are 100% white and 0% renter. We have other parts of Ward 7 that are over 50% renter and over 50% people of color. It's important to include all voices in our city. I think 2020 should serve as a wake-up call to many of us about the inequities in our city, and we need to take that very seriously. I haven't seen the mayor take the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan seriously. I think that the city council is trying to bring equity into more decision-making processes, and this is something that I want to lead on as well. In my door-knocking experiences throughout Ward 7, I have met so many folks from marginalized identities who tell me that the city's not working for them. It's not serving them. They feel disenfranchised. And I think it's really important to show as a leader that you care, that you're there, that you're present for them, that you're including them, that you're removing barriers to participation in local democracy. In 2021, we had 10,000 voters in Ward 7. That's only 30% of the people in Ward 7 who can vote. In order to have a high voter turnout, we have to prove to people that local government can actually change their lives and can make a difference. I want to finish by saying that we have a Truth and Reconciliation work group ongoing at the city right now, and I really look forward to hearing their policy recommendations for paths forward on equity.
Thank you. Ken.
That's why I'm here. I'm here because I realized that it's not that many people of color who want to go and stand up and be a city council member or be a person who runs for politics because they believe that they're just talking yank, they're just talking crazy, and their vote don't matter. I mean, I'm very, very proud just to see a few African Americans and other people of color here at this place, because my problem is that, hey, where are they? Why they're not here? Did anybody ask them to come? In our ward right now, 60% of our people make less than $34,000 a year. My question is that why are they not standing up? Why are they not saying anything? Why are they not over at Nicollet because you got those shootings over there? Why are they not here? Why over here when you got Logan Park, already been 3 shots over there in the last month? Why are they not here? Because they feel like they don't matter, they don't care. That's why I'm here. I know I can create a change. I have done it for 40 years. And the only thing I got to do is to show you and show the people that like I said, my 3 things. I will listen, I will care. You just got to understand, you matter.
Thank you. Candidates will now have up to 1 minute for their closing statements. Ken, you are first.
My father used to say this, and before he died, and I didn't understand until I got to a little bit older what he was trying to say. He told me, he said, you know, Ken, there's 4 things about a hood. And I'm like, what are you talking about a hood? He said, well, hey, first of all, you need to understand what childhood is. The other thing is that you need to understand what sisterhood and brotherhood is. And since you're a man, you need to understand what fatherhood is. He said, once you understand all of those things, you can, and other people can develop a neighborhood. It is time for us to come together. My problem is that you see Hispanics, American, African American, Asian American, white America, all of those things in the last 4 letters of America is I-C-A-N, I can. Who's telling us that we can't? My name is Ken Foxworth. I'm not looking for a miracle. I'm looking for a movement.
Thank you. Katie.
Thanks so much for sharing time with me tonight. I hope I've been able to share some of my vision for a safe, welcoming, vibrant, resilient Ward 7 and the future of our city. I'm deeply committed to including all voices in that vision, and I truly want to hear from you as we build that vision together. I'm really proud of my campaign. We have knocked over 12,000 doors throughout Ward 7, both homes and apartments, to make sure that everybody knows about the upcoming election and how they can participate in local government. My coalition is built around shared values, and I'm proud to be endorsed by several advocacy groups, environmental groups, LGBTQ advocacy groups, Women Winning, and so many powerful women in leadership, including Hennepin County Commissioner Board Chair Irene Fernando, Representative Esther Agbaje, Sam Sensor-Mura, Ellen Anderson, Patricia Torres-Ray, and I'm inviting you to be part of that coalition as well. And you can visit more at katieforcouncil.org, and I hope you'll vote this year.
Thank you. Scott.
Well, thank you for coming. I hope you feel like tonight was a productive use of your time. I want to thank Whitney and the League and the neighborhood orgs that put this on. Thank you. I too am proud of the campaign that we've run since January, and we also have door knocked the daylights out of the district, and we're going to keep doing it for 40 days and 40 nights. That's how many we have left. I thank you for being civically engaged in our city. Your engagement is what gives me faith that Minneapolis has got what it takes. We can do this as a team. And speaking of a team, on mine, I am proud to be endorsed by labor organizations like our firefighters, our Carpenter Council, and AFSCME, and I also have a number of personal endorsements, the most important of which, of course, is our sitting council person, Lisa Goodman. I'm very proud of that endorsement. Most of you probably got a letter 3 weeks ago from Lisa talking about why she felt like I was best qualified to take over this role that she's done such a splendid job of for what will be 26 years when she retires. So thank you very kindly. If you want to learn more, Scott, FORMPLS.com.
Thank you. On behalf of all of the co-sponsors, I thank the candidates for Ward 7 City Council for being part of the democratic process by running for office and for being willing to serve the community. We hope the forum has helped voters to make an informed decision. Many thanks to MCN6 for recording this forum and to the Women's Club for providing this beautiful space. The studio and video recording of this forum will be available unedited for viewing on the League of Women Voters Minneapolis website, lwvmpls.org. Recordings may not be edited by the candidates or the public or used for partisan purposes. Another Ward 7 forum, co-sponsored by several Ward 7 neighborhoods, will be held on October 12th at Lake of the Isles Lutheran Church. The League also researches issues important to our members and the health of our communities. If you are interested in finding out more about what we do and how you can make a difference, please visit our website, lwvmpls.org, and consider joining us as a member or volunteer. You can find more nonpartisan information about candidates and about voting at another League website, vote411.org. Information on voting and registering to vote can also be found on the Minnesota Secretary of State website, mnvotes.gov. And remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. Early voting began September 22nd and continues through November 6th. Please vote. Your vote matters. Thank you.